Hi, I am here with the author Mary Harrington at the ARC Forum in London. I became familiar with Ms. Harrington's writings because some view it as a controversial feminist take on the sexual revolution, and I wanted to hear her in her own words. So can you, for people who are not familiar with your most recent book, what's it called, what's it about?
The title of the book is Feminism Against Progress. It's my most recent and also my first book. It's published by Swift in the UK and Regner in the US. And my thesis is that feminism is not evidence of progress, but an effect of the Industrial Revolution. In essence, it's women's aggregate response to the changes introduced by technology. And my argument is that since we left the industrial era and entered the transhumanist era, with the arrival of birth control and later abortion and subsequently gender surgeries and gender medicine, all of which are on the same continuum, that what we now think of as progress, which is to say technology, freedom underwritten by technology, is no longer in women's interests. It's now actively anti-feminist. And yet it's still embraced by a lot of women today who see themselves as feminists and who pursue the interests of elite women to the detriment of everybody else.
How is it not in women's interest for casual sex, for that playing field to be a bit more leveled out with medical, technical advances through the pill, for example?
Well,
I mean, pregnancy is a big burden.
Pregnancy is a major burden. However, against that we can weigh the fact that most women don't come in the course of casual sex. So in essence, what you're saying is that women should be taking an oral contraceptive, for example, from the age of 14, which studies have shown affects mood. It's a major contributory factor to adolescent depression. It can have all sorts of other negative side effects. It can leave you without libido, putting on weight, with significant mood swings and other mental health issues. And you're taking that in order to enable men to have sexual access to you, potentially in casual encounters, in which studies suggest that 90% of the time you won't even come. So you're messing up your body, you're messing up your mental health, you're messing up your entire physiology, and you're doing that for the sake, essentially, of men's joys. And I struggle to see that that's unambiguous. At least it's not unambiguously a gain for women.
So then are you telling women that they should practice chastity?
I'm arguing that everybody should practice chastity. Or at least considerably more chastity than they currently do.
So how is this a feminist argument rather than, let's just say to my American ears, a religious right argument? Well,
I'm not arguing this from a religious conservative perspective. I'm arguing this from an analysis of it. I go into detail in the book on looking at the impact of the transhumanist era throughout the war on relationships, which it's waging against women's relationships, men and women's relationships with one another, with women's relationships with their babies, and finally all of our relationships with our own bodies. And I argue that the transhuman term, which is to say the industrialization of our own bodies through biotech, which really begins with the contraceptive pill and has just proliferated outwards from there, has brought us to a point where we're waging war on every given of every relationship, whether it's with our partners, with our children, and with our bodies themselves, such that we feel we should be able to liberate ourselves from every constraint of our bodies and our relationships in pursuit of some sort of abstract kind of freedom. And really, the only all that's leaving us with is misery, exploitation, and alienation.
So, with the pill not going away, with how society has progressed in, let's just say, the United States and Britain since the 1960s, how can you realistically mainstream your argument? Can you?
I honestly don't know if I can. We're not putting the pill back in the box anytime soon. I'm realistic about that. But I make the case that we all still have a choice. We don't have to take it. We don't have to embrace that logic. And yes, there are challenges there. There's a coordination problem there. But I hear from younger women who refuse the contracepted order and who are still forming relationships, who are finding themselves partners, who are forming families, and who are making it work. I believe it can be done. There's an effort of will required, but it can be done.
We're often told that the pill benefits women, but is it actually men who benefit from it?
Well, I actually don't think it's a straightforward either or. I mean, there's a woman won the Nobel Prize this year in economics for studies showing how inseparable the oral contraceptives were from women's entry into the workplace, into employment, into public life, really, since the 1960s. And it's impossible. I mean, I can't dispute the fact that these things have been a huge benefit to those women able to take advantage of them. But what we have to recognise is that any social or technological change always comes with costs. And what I think we've undercounted so far has been the costs of those transformations. And a lot of them have been borne by less well-off women with fewer opportunities, women who perhaps wouldn't necessarily have benefited from going to college, and who found themselves in an environment where it's no longer normative, for example, to form families and to have stable families, and who as a result are struggling very alone, sometimes with dependent children, in a world which has very little to offer them and very little social fabric left to support them. And I think it's been a catastrophe from that point of view as well. So it depends where you're standing, whether it's a benefit or not, and I think we just need to be a bit more realistic about the whole picture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.